Can I ask you, what's it like being a part of this exhibition and having little Nellie?
Well, it's amazing really after all these years to the long-term effects of being James Bond. I hadn't even seen a James Bond film before I took part in that one. I knew of them, but I hadn't actually seen one.
And was it quite hard filming in Japan?
Oh yes. Anyway, a lot of people say it must have been fun making the film. I can tell you it wasn't. It was 84 flights and about 44 hours in the air in Japan and Spain to make that film. And the takeoff and landing sites were the hairy bits, cliff edges literally. And you'd have to climb to about 6,000 or 8,000 feet over the volcano crater, do the shot with the other aircraft, come back, slither to a stop on a cliff edge, think, thank God I've still got the aircraft. About half an hour later, number 4 camera had a hair in the gate, got to do it again. Just the same as on the ground, cut, do it again. So it was not fun, it was serious.
Did you have much problems with the turbulence within the volcanoes?
No, my aircraft was fine, but a number of the other aircraft did have some trouble, and they were constantly saying, could I slow down a bit? They couldn't keep up with me with the villain's helicopter.
And the other thing that I have heard about the filming was that they had a problem with the aerial cameraman, Johnny Jordan. Can you tell us a bit about
Yeah, well, actually, John Jordan is a wonderful chap, and whereas the rest of us in the evening, when there wasn't any filming, we'd go out and enjoy ourselves in the Japanese city of Kagoshima. He'd stay behind in his room in the hotel and think up tomorrow's shot. And he's the chap who thought up the fact that 007 sees the shadow of his aircraft flying around a volcano crater, and then he sees the shadows of the others chasing him. That was a shot that John thought up, totally devoted to the job. But there was an unfortunate accident between one of the other helicopters and the camera helicopter. John was filming with his feet on the skid of the camera helicopter, shooting out to the side, and the other helicopter was supposed to be doing a fast pass towards him and just missed. But the helicopter pilot hadn't allowed for the altitude, and you need a bit more space to turn sharply at altitude, and his rotor blade sliced through the skid of the camera helicopter and through John Jordan's leg. The camera helicopter pilot did a wonderful job because the skid you see on one side was cut away, but he called for some bricks to be put in place and he landed it without it rolling over. But John has got his leg hanging on the end of his artery or something. But the camera helicopter pilot, believe it or not, was a suicide pilot, a kamikaze, whose name hadn't come to the top of the list before the war ended. You couldn't have wished to meet a nicer man. We were great friends, but he did a wonderful job. But John then had to go and have his leg amputated. And I next met John at Duxford when he was filming the Battle of Britain, hung underneath a helicopter, about 2 years later. We met then, and he then went out to America to do a film called Catch-22. And apparently he couldn't get quite the shot he wanted out of the side of a Mitchell bomber with a cutaway side. He undid his monkey strap, his safety strap, to lean a bit further out to get the shot. And apparently he fell in the Pacific, about 5,000 feet. But knowing John, he'd say, well, was it a good shot I got before I fell out? And if you say, oh, it was good, he'd say, well, it was worth it. Totally debated, but a really nice chap. Sad that he went that way.
What was it like? We all think that kind of the special effects kind of should work
Yeah.
because they've been designed for James Bond, but really, were they quite problematic getting all the rockets to fire, and what effect did it have on your flight?
Well, actually, before I went out to Brazil, I talked to the fellow who was the special effects chap at Pinewood Studios. He'd been ex-RAF, and I was a senior specialist armament officer, and we discussed the weapons that might be put on it. And so when I arrived out in Japan from Brazil, making the spaghetti James Bond, little Nellie was there with the weapon systems on. I did have to make 1 or 2 changes and so forth, but basically it was my line of business anyway. I mean, the big rockets are powered by a motor that carries a line across the sinking ship normally, really powerful motors. They could all have been for real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, it's a pleasure.